Kino pavasaris. Kovo 18, balandžio 5 dienomis visoje Lietuvoje. Didysis partneris Ergo draudimo grupė. Informaciniai partneriai TV3, 15 min žmonės.
Mūsų karta pirmoji supratusi, kaip iš lėto kenkiame gamtai. Ir vienintelė, žinanti, kad dar yra laiko ją išsaugoti. Apsaugokime mūsų visų ateitį. Ergo.
Geriausius kino pavasario filmus parodys žiūrimiausia televizija TV3. Šeštadieniais 22:40.
Festivalis Kino pavasaris jūsų namuose. Visus filmus žiūrėkite Telia televizijoje jums patogiu metu. Telia. Įdomiau tik gyvenimas.
The laws of physics. The laws of life. Laws connect everything. We think that to be legal advisors, we must live under the same philosophy. Adapting to connect and connecting to adapt.
Sveiki visi, kurie žiūrite pokalbį, tai šį kartą kalbėsime su režisieriumi iš Kanados, Denisu Côté, kuris pristato savo filmo SOCIALINę higieną pas mus kino pavasarėje meistrų programoje. Ir filmas buvo apdovanotas už geriausią režisūrą Berlyno kino festivalyje konkursinėje programoje Encounters. So, hi Denis.
Hello.
It's very nice to see you again, even though in this virtual conversation. It's actually been quite weird to do the conversations without the audiences and not after the screening, but that's the reality. So anyway, I just watched your film for one more time. And I wanted to say thanks again. I really enjoyed it. I think it's one of my favorites from this year program in Vilnius Film Festival.
Wow, thank you.
And just to start, I remember you have mentioned that the idea for the film came to you 5 years ago in Sarajevo. And I was wondering, was the COVID situation actually a reason to finally bring it to the screen? And maybe you could talk a bit, how did it change over the time, the idea?
Yes, yes, it's true. It's something that I wrote 5 years ago, while vacationing, or I was visiting a small festival in Sarajevo. And I decided to stay there 7 weeks, and I started writing, and I didn't know if it would become a novel or a film, but it was just long monologues, long dialogues, you know. And I kept it in a drawer for 5 years because it didn't look like a film to me, you know. So during the pandemic, one actress called me and she said, "Hey, we are bored, we don't work, we should do something. Do you have a project?" So I said, "Look, I have these pages, but I didn't read anything in the last 5 years." And she said, "Oh, can I read? Can I read?" And then she said, "It's so funny, let's do it. We don't need any budget to do that. And now it's the pandemic and your idea is already very clear. We can outside in long spaces and we will just go and have fun." So it was very hard for me to meet the actors and practice something. So they just learned the dialogues and we went and we did the film exactly like it was written 5 years ago. So it was very hard for me to change anything, but since you ask, I think I created the ending of the film, the last scene. I felt I needed an ending or a closure to the story or the non-story. So yeah, it was written a long time ago and it was just directed by accident, I'd like to say, for fun with a bunch of cool actors, you know.
Yeah, the actors are great and the dialogues are so sharp. And I think it was, I haven't seen all of your films, but I've seen a lot, and I think that there were never so many dialogues in your films. It was never based so much on the talking. Maybe you could talk a bit about this. How did it come? I mean, you're saying that you wrote it and didn't know if it's going to be a film, but anyway, it's so many dialogues, it's so funny and so sharp. Maybe just a bit about the focusing on dialogues.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that, look, every time people see a new film of mine, they feel it's made by somebody else or somebody new, which is okay, because I like to surprise people, and probably you did not expect such a film from me. But to answer your question, when I started making films, you're young, you are a cinephile, and you think dialogues are useless. You think they are stupid. You think they are there just to explain things. So you find sound and image, and you're trying to reject dialogue, because for you dialogues is psychology. Then you grow up and you find some new maturity, and you start having fun with dialogues. And I think that happened to me only maybe with my film from 2013, Vic and Flo Saw a Bear. That's probably the first time where when I fell in love with writing dialogues. And yeah, you mature and you feel like you can do different stuff with dialogues instead of psychology. So this new film, like you say, it's just an ocean of words, and sometimes they don't mean anything. They're just there for people to, they are afraid of silence, you know, so they need to fill the silence by talking too much. And I think that's funny. They're trying to communicate, but they're not really communicating. They are filling up a void. So yeah, and my previous film was a completely silent film called Wilcox, and I wanted to work on silence. And I think this new film is a sort of funny answer to that, because people talk too much for nothing, so I stop now.
But why all of Antonine's encounters are with women?
Yeah. Look, it's the film is brand new. It's hard for me to intellectualize the whole thing, but I think when I was writing without thinking too much, I was probably this guy, Antonin. Probably. I'm not him, but I was probably him when I was writing. And I felt like surrounding the character with all the women in his life trying to give him shit for good reasons and bad reasons. I'm not saying I was this guy, but it was very fun to create these powerful women around him. And it's like they're all around him and they're waiting for him to grow up. He's like a delinquent. He thinks he's a poet. He thinks he's charming. He thinks he's a dandy. He is somehow, but he's also very immature. He's a man-child. And he thinks he can get away with everything by using cute words and cute moves, you know. Really like these women around him. They stand there, they're not moving, and they're just waiting for him to grow up. And I think that's a little like society, you know. Men talk all the time, they take all the space, they take all the authority they can find. And at some point, they just need to shut up, and the women are waiting. And I think it's pretty funny without being too heavy in the film. You know, it's light in the film, but I think it says what it has to say. Like they are waiting for him to grow up as a man. You know, so yeah.
I really liked the beginning, this conversation between Antonine and his sister Solveig. And she says that she can't stand his cynicism, and that cynicism doesn't run in the blood of their family. I was wondering, maybe you can say a bit what your thoughts on cynicism and from where it comes in your character, Does it come from the frustration, or there was something else you wanted to tackle with this critique of cynicism?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think sometimes when we talk about cinema, probably the worst cinema is the cynical one. And you know what kind of cinema I mean. I mean nihilistic cinema, misanthropic cinema, cynicism just for the sake of it. And I'm quite allergic to that kind of cinema. I can't name directors or films, but it exists. People make films with human beings, but they don't love their characters, and they don't love humanity, but they're still making films about it, you know? So that's probably why Solveig is saying something like that. You know, I don't have the exact answer to your question, but I'm trying to guess where it would come from. So everything Antonin can say is okay. It can be colorful, it can be funny, but cynicism and hating people is not allowed for her, is not allowed in the film, and is not allowed in general. So that's what I could answer you, you know.
Yeah, and I think you talked as well already about this immaturity, which sometimes I feel that this cynicism really often comes together with being immature or being like too childish in a way, that not childish as a playfulness, but because of some ignorance or immaturity.
It's an easy way out. When you don't want to argue with people and when you don't have any arguments, cynicism is a cool argument. You just say you hate people and you hate everything. You can smile saying it, but it doesn't help. It doesn't go anywhere. Look, personally, if I can talk personally, I'm not a very good citizen, in the sense that you will never see me in a group or in a protest or screaming for social justice. I'm not this kind of person. It doesn't mean I don't have values or opinions, but I don't like to go in crowds and voice my opinion very strongly or make films about that. My films are not social. But on the other hand, I would hate if I would be cynical. Cynical would mean that you don't do anything because it's worth nothing, and in the end, nobody's winning because people are stupid. You see, this equation doesn't make sense. So my personal position could be a little like Antonin. I like to look at the world, but in a very distant way. And when I make my films, if you look carefully, I always make films in the peripheria of my subjects, meaning I never look at my subject frontally and brutally. For example, when I made a film about bodybuilders, I'm not interviewing them. I'm not talking about the obvious stuff, the diet, or when they go to the gym and they do all their exercises. I don't film that. That is too obvious. I like to stay away from my subject and film the peripheria. And I'm the same in real life. I see there's a problem. Instead of jumping on the problem and voicing my opinion, I take a step back and I look at it in an ironic way. And I think Antonin looks a bit like me in this sense. He loves to get out of trouble by finding a little twist, you know. I really don't like saying anything that I'm like Antonin, but I still think we make films based on who we are, you know. So yeah, I should stop.
No, but probably you could find yourself in other characters, no? I mean, not only in Antonin, but probably that's the way you create. You put some of your thoughts in different characters.
Of course, and it's not only social hygiene. It's all your films are psychoanalysis. You know, I've never been to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, never. It's always my films. And I think my exorcisms are my films. And in every character, of course, I'm writing those dialogues and I'm creating those characters. So they are obviously like me. Many times in interviews, I said I create characters who lives 1 foot outside of society. That could be me, a little bit outside of the film industry, making films that are a little different. So you always talk about yourself, consciously or unconsciously, but you can't get away from who you are when you write. I can't write about something I have no clue about, you know, it doesn't make sense.
And I was wondering as well about this that you are not so specific with the time period, because some of the costumes brings us completely back centuries, and I was especially, it strikes when Antonin talks with Cassiope, I think, yeah, who is dressed with this old-fashioned dress, and then he mentions, oh, and in your Facebook account I kind of noticed that probably you have another man. So I was thinking maybe you could say a bit what was the idea behind this, playing with the uncertainty of historical period.
It's just playful, you know. It would be stupid to make a film about male-female relationship and say this is so 2021. Or write these dialogues and put people in kitchens or living rooms or bedrooms. So my idea was just to be extremely playful with time and space. So some people could look like they're from 19th century, while others seems to be from yesterday and they work at McDonald's and they have a Facebook. And I wanted this funny chaos to be all together. And then same thing for the space. I decided to bring them in the middle of nowhere, in big no man's land. So you don't know. I could imagine those dialogues in a kitchen, you know, it would be too realistic. So it's just a playful idea with time and space, you know, it's nothing more complicated than that.
And I
like that they look like figurines. The characters are very small, very far away from the camera. It's a bit like they don't really exist. It's more like what they're saying that is important, and the speech and the words. Not do they have a real psychology? Are they just archetypes or prototypes? It's possible. And it makes me think when you watch a film by Roy Anderson, you know, these people are nobodies in the middle of nowhere. And it makes it even more funny or more tragic because they don't have names, they're nobodies. So I guess that was kind of my idea, the same.
But then with the young girl, with Aurora, something different happens. So maybe you could, if you want to say why we suddenly move with her in this in the forest, and we have contact with the animals suddenly, and she seems like a real person.
Look, I feel like the sister, the wife, the lover, the law, the tax collector or society, those are all concepts, old concepts. And I felt that with Aurore, she would be the contemporary side of my story. She's young, she's moving, she's filmed in a different way. She's a little more spiritual. She loves to dance, she loves music, she's confronting Antonin, she's not afraid of this, you could say, toxic masculinity. He stole her laptop, and she's confronting him. So she's very young, contemporary woman, and she still believes in human being. She still has empathy for people. So she's the most dynamic character because of her young age, and that was important for me. So she's stealing the show with her youth. All the others look like mummies, old concepts. they look like 19th century man and wife, brother, sister, you need to fight with your brother, sister. And so it's a new concept today versus old concept. So that was my idea behind her.
And maybe you could say a bit about the sound as well, because I think I noticed it only second time, actually. I need to admit that it's really specific that in each dialogue you hear completely different emphasis on sound. Yeah. Like with the sister, you hear some crows, or with the taxpayer is really not such a pleasant sounds of almost like a trash truck going backwards. You suddenly imagine all of the different things. Maybe you could say a bit about how you work on sound.
Look, I knew the film would be, I wouldn't say radical, but a little demanding. Like the first shot is one 14-minute fixed shot. And the second one is 12 minutes. And the third one is again 15 minutes. So when you make a film like that, you get a little scared that you're going to bore the audience. And I think a lot about the audience. This film is a little demanding, is only 76 minutes. So I think about these things. And when you get even more nervous, you start thinking about how could I make something dynamic with this sound. So I thought every character will have his own sound universe. So with the sound designer, we had these funny ideas. This sister, she's always bringing the crows with her so she can fight with Antonin. And it feels like she's rah, 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 like crows, you know. Then you have this wife, and we said, okay, let's play with the wind. So for her, it's the wind. So all of the characters have their own sound. So it makes me feel a little more cinematic because the proposition of the film is very theatrical. So those are just ideas you bring in to make sure that the film is more dynamic. And yes, of course, with Rose, the tax collector, it's like society is all over the place. Like they're building condos and apartments like 2 meters away, the hammering and it's just fun. It's just fun. It's hard to intellectualize. It's just fun.
Yeah, it was really, really a lot of fun. But as I mentioned, I really noticed it only watching it second time. Maybe because I was so focused into the dialogues that it's like when I watch it now, I thought, oh my God, this is so nice. Like different universe of sound for each frame. But you said that.
But I guess we still need to say that something is a little sad because, of course, we make films for the big screen. Yeah. This film is Dolby 5.1. It's all created in a big cinema professionally. So you see, thinking that the film came out at Berlinale or now it's playing at your festival, and most people will maybe watch it on a laptop, maybe on a TV that is a little larger. But it's still a little sad. We need to live with COVID, of course, but it's a little sad that people won't see such a film on the big screen. And yeah, so the sound would make a lot more sense in a cinema, but life is life.
Yeah, of course. And I was thinking, you said that you wouldn't call it radical, but actually I think it's quite radical in its formalistic decisions. But anyway, I was a bit afraid maybe that people would, in Lithuania especially, I think they are not so interested in slow cinema, but on the other hand, it seems like formally your film is a slow cinema, but it really is so intense that you can't even call it slow cinema. But maybe you could talk a bit about your approach, because you had some other films that would match probably this label of slow cinema, but this one seems it does really something very different.
I really like the fight around the label slow cinema. And I think since 15, 20 years, a lot of filmmakers have made slow films. And when I say slow films, I say it in a bit in a pejorative way, because a lot of people don't know how to work with time, and they don't know how to work with the audience, and they're not good at cutting when it's time to cut. So we have this tons of films that are not, they're just boring. They're slow cinema boring because people can't master the art of duration. And over the years, I know that I've been making slow films sometimes, but the more I grow up, the more I think about the audience. And sometimes I'm with my editor, and at some point we're gonna say something like, okay, now it hurts. And when we say that it hurts, it means the audience, it means it doesn't make sense anymore in the duration, so we need to cut. And for me, slow cinema is okay, but being bored is completely different, and I don't allow it. So when I approach a film like Social Hygiene, I know it's gonna hurt in duration, but I'm trying to make sure it's not boring when I'm using the dialogues. I cut when you don't expect it to cut. I'm trying to find solutions. So I think you saw the secret of this film, it's in your question. You said it's slow cinema, but we're not, I hope that's what you're saying. It's slow cinema, but it's not boring. So I'm really trying to be careful, film after film, not to bore the audience. A film like that could be 3 hours. It could be 3 hours. The characters could always come back and say funny things, but since 2012, when I made my film Bestia with all the animals, they were just extreme long shots of animals. I discovered the pleasure of talking with the audience after that film. Before that, I think I was making films for myself. If I was happy, it was okay. Since 2012, I'm thinking always about the audience. So every time we're editing, we're thinking about Maria who will watch the film, or Robert, or, you know, we're thinking about the audience. So is it a radical film? I'm afraid of the word, because usually when we say radical, it means provocation. And I don't like that. Provocating an audience doesn't make any sense for me. I don't really see the point of provocating an audience and be like, yeah, people are leaving the cinema, my film is so radical. It doesn't mean anything for me. So it can be demanding, but it can be boring. So yeah. And well, with this film, the first shot is 14 minutes. So for a lot of people, they're gonna think, oh, the whole film will be only one shot. So I hope they stay patient, and they're gonna see that we find ways to make it more dynamic, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's really, really intense, and it's really not boring. I mean, even the first long shot, at least for me, it was. But you know, I'm a big lover of slow cinema, but not all, of course. But this one is really special. And because you said so many times that you're thinking about the audience, and of course you mentioned that a lot of the dialogues and a lot of the words in this film is just talking, you know, just to fill the void. But anyway, I felt that this time you kind of wanted the audiences to not maybe to inform them, to say a clear message, but maybe you just could share what would you like your audience after this film to think about?
Well, yeah, it's true that I say something that is a contradiction. I say it, they talk to say nothing, and it's just noise and to fill the void, but at the same time, the dialogues are sophisticated and they talk a lot, and so I need to be careful with my contradiction there. But you know, this film is like a big buffet, like the relationship between brother and sister. If you can identify with that as an audience, it's great. You're gonna laugh at that point. If you can identify with man and husband and wife, it's great. You're gonna identify. If you're exhausted by the film and now it's the time to laugh because the tax collector is so funny with Antonin, it's great. You know, it's a sort of buffet. And of course, I'm like all the filmmakers, you know, we don't make films to deliver a message, especially not me. But it's true at the same time, I'm not offering films just for entertainment. So it's with this film, it's somewhere in between. And the problem I have with this film, you need to remember that it's something I wrote fast a long time ago. Suddenly we did it very fast. And suddenly it was at Berlinale and I do interviews. So the film did not have time to live inside me. When I make my bigger films with bigger budgets, like, I don't know, Ghost Town Anthology or Curling, I live with these films inside me for 2 years. So, of course, when I give an interview, I absolutely know what my film is about, what it wants to say, what are the themes. But this time, I'm telling you, it's like a toy. It's something we did so quick and for fun that I would like to be super generous or intellectualize stuff in interviews, but I just stop. I'm like, look, it's just fun. But it's liberating. It's liberating. The film was written in like 2 weeks, 4 days, edited in 4 days, made for 25,000 euros, Berlinale award, you know, it's like a little dream come true. It's very, very liberating. So when I make a film like that, I get some energy and then I'm ready to go make a bigger film with the industry, with a crew of 30 people, with a producer, a distributor, a sales agent. So I really need a small film like Social Hygiene to liberate myself from the industry and then make a bigger one. So yeah, the audience, please take it for what it is, a fun little ride, you know.
Yeah, it's great, and really, really, Deni, congratulations with this film. I enjoyed it so much. It's a fun ride, and it tackles so many topics, but in such a, I don't know, refreshing way. I think audiences would really appreciate that, and I think not even. It's nice that you're saying that it's liberating for you, but in a way, I think this film is really liberating for the audience as well. Somehow I felt it like really fresh.
Because I think the film is not heavy-handed. It's not a profound film. It's not a masterpiece. It's just, we are opening tons of doors and we're never closing them. And the other thing, if I may say, I feel like, I hope we are at the end of the pandemic and we are very exhausted. And for a lot of people, this film is about distance between people and it looks like a pandemic film. And it's so light and it's such a comedy that sometimes I like to brag and say it's the perfect film right now for the post-pandemic time. It's a bit as if we're talking about the pandemic, but not really. And if we could gather in a cinema and see this film, it could be the post-pandemic film. I'm trying to send myself big flowers now, but I still think it's a liberating film.
Yeah, I agree. And I never listened to Lebanon Hanover before. I mean, I heard them, but I didn't I was not so much maybe impressed. But the ending with the song is just like, I don't know, I liked it so much. I don't have an argument why, but it was just perfect ending. So yeah, thank you so much, Deni, for your film.
This band is such an enigma for me. Look, it's a band I like very much. If the audience want to discover them, Lebanon and Over, go see their videos. Their videos, you never know if they take themselves seriously. They're like this goth duo singing about sadness, rebellion, and it's very teenager kind of feelings, and it's very simple, very dark goth, but it feels it was written by a 15-year-old goth kid, you know. And I love all the songs, and look at those videos. They're so cheesy, but at the same time, it's so perfect. So I felt that this song called Kiss Me Until My Lips Fall Off, it's so extreme, it's so ridiculous that it had to be in the film, with Antonin not being able to connect with all these women. For me, it was over the top, like a cheap goth song. So as much as I love the song, I think it's sort of perfect song for this small film that sometimes look like a student film. So I don't know, I really like this choice, but I'm telling people, go see the videos. The videos of this band are just out of this world, and I don't know if they take themselves seriously. So I'm really happy I could buy the song and reach the band and get it in the film. You know.
Great, so thank you so much for the conversation, Denis, and good luck, and I really hope we can meet in Vilnius quite soon.
Well, thank you very much, and yeah, have a good festival.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.